Let's continue decoding Sam Tatam's Evolutionary Ideas. This is part 5 of the interpretation. Even if what you say is absolutely correct, convincing others to follow through with your suggestion is quite challenging. Any parent can attest to this. Children might acknowledge that doing something is right, but if you ask them to do it, they resist. This section continues discussing evolutionary psychology and behavioral science methods from the book, exploring how to trigger actions in others without resorting to forced reactions. Let's start with an example. Some streets have speed display signs that automatically use radar to measure the speed of passing vehicles. For instance, if the speed limit on a street is 35 miles per hour and you're driving over it, the sign will flash your speed in orange, prompting you to slow down. Interestingly, these speed signs don't have cameras, lack enforcement capabilities, and are merely reminders. You can completely ignore them. Yet, most of the time, drivers tend to slow down when reminded. Why does this happen? The flashing orange numbers continuously create a sense that something is amiss, making you feel like you've caused trouble in the world. You instinctively want to restore normal order to the world. Slowing down becomes your spontaneous action. Humans are excellent at recognizing various orders. For example, as mentioned before, our brains have a unique tendency to detect faces in various patterns. Be it the foam on coffee, burnt marks on bread, or a terrain on Mars. This psychological phenomenon has a formal name: pareidolia. Tatam's book has a fascinating example that I must share. In 1955, Canada introduced a new version of its $100 bill. As a Commonwealth country, the bill featured the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, elegantly designed. However, shortly after its release, some claimed that there was a devil's face hidden in the Queen's hair. Take a moment, can you see the face? Initially, you wouldn't even think about it, but once someone points it out, it strangely looks like a devil's face. Canada quickly modified the bill to the new version. The previous version with the devil's face became a highly sought-after collector's item. This example illustrates how prevalent pareidolia is. A fixed tendency in the human brain. We've discussed broad superstitions before, stating that superstition is about finding reasons where there are none, discovering meaning where there is none, finding patterns where there are none, and imposing causality where there is none. Now, let's go a step further. It's not just faces or patterns. In general, people like to discover order in the world. Or, one could say, people love order. We dislike chaos and prefer everything in its place, orderly and well organized. This is why we appreciate symmetrical things. Symmetry represents a strong order. Research indicates that symmetrical things are easier for you to distinguish, detect, and remember. Furthermore, we not only like order but also want to maintain it. Take a look at this picture. This is a pizza with a slice cut out of it. However, the person cutting the pizza didn't use a regular method, but rather, cut an irregular triangle in the middle, not very precisely. You might experience a strong sense of discomfort, even a kind of pain. More accurately, it feels like an itch that needs scratching. You sense a compulsive urge. Because you want to maintain order. Just like wanting to rearrange items on a messy table or adjusting a crookedly hung picture on the wall. It makes you feel uneasy. This brings us to the first method of attracting action. You spontaneously want things to return to order. For example, someone designed this switch. It features a pattern of 2 horse legs on a black background. When the room light is on, the middle switch is misaligned, disrupting the entire pattern. You would strongly want to turn the switch back to align the horse legs. The designer's intention is to leverage this compulsion to save energy. The second method is providing feedback. Many times, it's not that you don't want to do the right thing. It's just that, without a reminder, it's challenging. For instance, you don't want to speed while driving, but if you don't notice the speed limit sign, you might accidentally speed. So, if there's a blinking speed display sign on the roadside giving you feedback, you might slow down. This is another layer of interpretation, for the example mentioned at the beginning. So, adding feedback is a great design approach. Imagine repainting a white wall with white paint. It's challenging, because you can't easily tell where you've just painted and where you haven't. Someone invented a type of paint that starts off pink and dries to white after a while, making it easy to see where you've painted. The principle here is feedback. Another example is a powerful sedative called rohypnol, which can cause temporary amnesia. Unlawful individuals in places like bars might secretly slip this drug into someone's drink to render them vulnerable. Since the drug is colorless and tasteless, how do you prevent it? In 2014, four American college students invented a nail polish called undercover colors. It starts off pink when applied to the nails, but if you dip your fingers in a drink containing rohypnol, the nail polish turns black. So, you can test for toxins in your drink, in potentially dangerous situations, solving the problem. This is the role of feedback. The third method is leveraging people's psychological reactance or resistance. People are willing to have a sense of control and dislike being controlled, so the more you ask someone to do something, the less they want to do it. Conversely, if you don't want someone to do something, they might be more inclined to do it. You might recall a scene from Mark Twain's novel, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Tom is tasked with whitewashing a fence but doesn't want to do the chore. He convinces his friends that whitewashing is a unique and special task, not something anyone can do. As a result, his friends become interested and even offer gifts to be allowed to whitewash. Tom effortlessly completes the task. In a well-known psychological experiment, participants were instructed not to think of a white bear for the next 15 minutes. The result was that people began thinking about white bears one after another. Originally, without the instruction, no one would have thought about it, but the moment you mention it, everyone tends to start thinking about it. This phenomenon is actually ubiquitous. In 2003, American singer Barbra Streisand sued a photographer for posting pictures of her mansion online, seeking $50 million in damages. Before the lawsuit, the photos had only been viewed 6 times, including once by Streisand and once by her lawyer. After the lawsuit was reported, the photos were immediately viewed 1 million times. A phenomenon now known as the Streisand effect. To satisfy reactance, let's take another look at this photo. When you restrict my actions and limit my freedom and independence, I am compelled to act. Whenever there is a call for gun control after a school shooting in the United States, gun sales increase. When the government conducts anti-drug campaigns, people become more interested in obtaining drugs. When a book is banned, it sparks sudden interest. If you hear about a niche film being banned in a certain country, you're more likely to want to watch it. These are all examples of the Streisand effect. The Streisand effect leaves governments at a loss. Whether you ban something or not, it creates a dilemma. How can businesses leverage this psychological reactance in people? Some businesses deliberately say, "Don't use our product in a certain situation. I recommend using another brand." This may carry some risk, as consumers might perceive it as discrimination. A gentler approach is to stimulate curiosity. Information gap is also a form of limitation. The less you let me know about something, the more I want to find out. That's why blind boxes are popular. Pay a sum, and I guarantee to send you a box of something. I promise it's worth it, but I won't tell you exactly what it is. So you're more inclined to buy. Reactance fundamentally stems from people's affinity for freedom and a sense of control. In fact, there's no need to actively create reactance. Just by reminding others of their freedom and sense of control, people will be more inclined to take action. There's a well-known psychological experiment. Volunteers are sent to busy streets, randomly approaching pedestrians, and asking for a few coins to take the bus. Some people give, and some don't. In a control group, the volunteers make the same request but add one more sentence. But you are free to accept or to refuse. This simple statement doubles the amount of coins received. Reminding the other person of their freedom increases their compliance. People genuinely resent restrictions, and love freedom. So, it's crucial to respect others' freedom fully, meaning it's better not to tell people not to do something. Sometimes, it's just a matter of phrasing. For example, in a bank or similar service hall with multiple counters, if one counter needs to be temporarily closed, instead of putting up a sign saying, "Counter closed," you could say, "We are here to serve you at another counter," making the customer feel better. This can also be called playing hard to get. Reading Evolutionary Ideas, I often reflect on how service used to be different. In the past, consumers seemed more rational. I would buy something if it was good value for money, and I would assess the product's technical aspects without being swayed by these behavioral tricks. So, what has changed? Why are sales techniques more critical than the product's technology nowadays? It's because we live in an era of abundance, where consumers have more choices. Inadvertently, consumers' self-esteem has grown stronger. Your product might be good, but others are not bad either. In reality, any business that survives in the market has a comparable level of competence. In this situation, brands need to stand out from other dimensions. People not only expect quality and good service, but also want your values to align with theirs. They might even check your political stance. This is an era where consumers receive more respect. But please note, this isn't the result of government indoctrination. It's the civilization brought by business. When you find yourself in a society where you're treated respectfully everywhere, where you don't need any special status, and you can walk into any bank or store, and people show you respect, remember, it's because you are in a free market economy. This concludes this part. In the next section, we'll discuss how to gain loyalty without using money.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.